Welcome to Comic Book Q&A with Professor John. I'm John Ebright, and I am a member of Make Comic Book Collecting Fun Again, which is the Facebook group that spawned the MCBCFA Play channel, which is what this video is going to be on. If you give it a chance, follow, like, subscribe, all those things. If you like what you see here, let us know. We'll see what we can do to get more content aimed at you, the viewer. Now, let's see if we can make comic book collecting fun again. Alright, this is my first video. So, this is going to be a Q&A type show. I'm hoping to do this once a week. And we are going to have some fun. I am not an actual professor, but I've been collecting comic books for 30 years, and I have college credits in comic books. I've been a creative individual. I'm an artist, so I've had a hand in comics for 32 years now almost. And so in that time, I've read, I've researched, I've written papers. My undergrad thesis was about comics. And so I've accumulated a large store of knowledge around comic books, which some people have said was a waste of time. I personally say I enjoy it, so why not? Hopefully you feel the same way. Alright, since this is my first video, I don't have any questions to answer. So, for this video, and possibly one or two more, I'm going to introduce you guys and gals to one of the most prestigious comic book characters that you might never have heard of. So, anybody who knows anything about comic books would probably recognize a few of these names I'm about to drop on you. So I'm going to ask you all a question. What do Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, Todd McFarlane, Alan Davis, and Joe Quesada all have in common? They have Miracleman in common. Miracleman is a series that started in the 1950s and was resurrected in the 1980s, and then was once again resurrected in the 2000s. So he has a long 60-year history. So, let's dive into that a little bit, shall we? First off, Miracleman is arguably the first British superhero. See, he was contracted to be created for a company called L. Miller and Sons. That was a publishing company in London that published Fawcett Captain Marvel comic book reprints. And in the early 1950s, they came into a problem in that DC Comics had looked at Captain Marvel and noticed that there were some similarities between Superman and Captain Marvel. And DC, being a business conglomerate first and foremost, was like, hey, you need to stop that. So they took him to court and eventually won, which in the process effectively bankrupted Fawcett Comics, and DC eventually absorbed their entire catalog of characters. The Marvel family, Taki Tani, all those guys. They are now DC characters, as you will know, as evidenced by the Shazam movie that opened just this past weekend, which I went and saw, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. But Miracleman was a creation out of desperation, because when the DC lawsuit happened, L. Miller and Sons found themselves with no more reprint material. So they turned to a gentleman named Mick Anglo, who was a British comic book artist. I will not say he was a good comic book artist, He'll never be among the Jack Kirbys, the Steve Ditkos, the Buscema brothers. But he's one of those guys who could crank it out. Several pages a day, just cranking out pencils and stories and content. And so he created what was then known as Marvelman. Now, Marvelman was literally Captain Marvel with a few words and a few colors different. They just had a keyword that transformed them from a normal person into a super being. They had a family built around them based on the same concept. And it was the Silver Age. So they were both very goofy. Now, Miracleman was then published as Marvelman, Young Marvelman, and Marvelman Family in the 50s. I think it was about 1956 that popularity started waning. Across the comic book spectrum, the superhero was waning. DC had moved primarily toward romance books. They were trying to reboot their superhero line with a heavy influence on science fiction. Marvel was doing westerns and monster books with some romance. And superheroes were kind of dying. So that was, like I said, across the board. So I think it was Marvelman Family that got canceled first. And then Young Marvelman, leaving Marvelman, the core title, the last one to finally give up its ghost in the late 50s. But the funny thing to me is that in the 50s, they stopped publication. And I believe L. Miller and Sons hit some financial difficulties around the same time. So, the thing that gets me is that until the 80s, it seemed like Marvelman just disappeared. Just poof. And because it seemed like nobody thought about him. Nobody remembered him. Nobody talked about him. He was that comic book character that was kind of like the creepy uncle that you never talk about. You just don't even acknowledge him. He was, to coin a term used by several other people, the redheaded stepchild that nobody talked about. Which I don't understand why. Because, yes, he was very obviously a copycat character. But there's still some storyline potential there. He had a really fun villain in Dr. Gargunza, who was obviously a Savannah ripoff, but he was fun and hilarious and silly. If you want to see what makes the Silver Age appeal to a lot of people, track down some Captain Marvel or Marvelman comics. They're pure, goofy entertainment. But what happened in that 20 years? I will never know. Nobody really knows. But what happened in the early 80s to make somebody think, hey, let's do something with this guy? Hopefully, I'll get into that in my next video. So, this is going to be me signing off. Hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, or week, or whatever it is out in YouTube land. And do your best to make comic book collecting fun again. And like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to see, because we're here for you. This is John Ebright, Professor John. This is Comic Book Q&A with Professor John. I'm signing off. Thank you for watching.